doing a review for Fear the Walking Dead. This would be Season 2, Episode 6, entitled Sicut, Cervus. So I did like tonight's episode, but I do have a few problems with some of the directions they might be taking with the characters. Kind of retread, things we've seen before. Basically, I'm thinking that Season 2 of Fear the Walking Dead is looking a lot like Season 2 of The Walking Dead, which is not a good thing. Okay, but first let's get into the beginning of the episode, which I thought was pretty strong. So in the beginning of the episode, we see there's this church. It's a Mexican church, and the priest is giving a speech. At first, I thought it might be like a flashback to Louise or Thomas Abigail back in the day. But no, it was set in the same timeline of the show, and it's this priest, and he's giving his parishioners a sermon. He's saying we need to have faith, we need to carry on, still believe in God, we're being tested, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of it, they have a communion, then they all go out, they pick up weapons, they're ready to throw down with someone. At this point, Thomas Abigail shows up, and he's warning these guys. He's like, hey, don't go up there, you're going to get yourselves killed, because they already know you're coming, there's more of them, and the priest is like, no, we've got to do this. And all of a sudden, people start bleeding out the eyes and ears and falling over dead. And I'm like, what the fuck? Is this how the outbreak, goes down? People just bleed out the eyes and die, and then, eventually come back as walkers. But then you realize, no, they've probably been poisoned or something. And the priest is like, this is what she does, this is what Celia does. And it's like, oh, Celia, that's the mother of Louise and the Thomas Abigail's housekeeper. I thought, wow, she just wiped out an entire church group. For what reason? Who knows? But we find out a little later, and it makes sense. But yeah, that was a pretty good beginning. Just right off the bat, shitload of people just died. So then we go back to the Abigail crew, and they're coming into Mexico. And they see the border patrol. They're out on boats. And Louise is like, hey, I got this. I know the guy. We're going to have a talk. Everyone else go below to the engine rooms. Everyone else is down there. And we don't know exactly what happens, but something goes awry up top on the yacht with Louise and Strand and the border guards. And you hear gunshots, and they come out. And you see there's 2 dead soldiers, and Louise has been shot, and he's bleeding out, and he's dying. Daniel takes up a knife, starts stabbing the dead soldiers so they don't come back. He's ready to do the same thing to Louise. He's like, no. Louise is like, don't stab me in the head. Here, give this to my mother. And it's this coin, and it's got like an owl on it. And Daniel looks at it, and you get the feeling he knows what it means, what it symbolizes. And he takes the coin and throws it into the ocean because he doesn't want any part of whatever that means. So they make it to shore. They run into the church parishioners, who are all walkers at this point. There's a big throwdown there. The whole crew's stabbing and shooting walkers. Daniel has a moment where he's got this choir boy by the neck, and he has this flashback where you see a soldier who's got this little boy by the neck, and you're wondering, is that Daniel years ago when he was in the Salvador army, doing these horrible things that he had to do, and at some point did he kill a kid? Or someone had suggested last night on The Talking Dead that might be Daniel. Daniel's a little boy with the, hand to the throat. We'll have to see how that turns out. And then at one point, Chris sees Madison's being attacked by a walker, and he just sort of stands there and watches it happen. Alicia said he has to put down this walker. And, of course, this leads to this confrontation later where Alicia's like, why'd you just let that happen? Chris, of course, threatens her. And then she tells Madison, which causes a rift between her and Travis when they start discussing what they need to do about Chris. And, Madison's like, he threatened my daughter. I don't want him anywhere around her. And, Travis is like, he's my son. He's basically your son. We're all family here. I helped you out with Nick. But a little later, Chris sneaks into their Madison and Alicia's room while they're sleeping. He pulls out a knife like he's going to stab them. And the only thing that stops him is there's a gunshot. And, of course, they catch him and they yell at him and kick him out of the room. But, and that's when I was talking about the direction that this show's going in. I'm getting a real Shane vibe when it comes to Chris. He's starting to lose it. And like in this episode, he was about to let Madison die. And it kind of reminds me when Shane, there was like a walker attack or something, and he was out there with a gun, and he started pointing it at Rick. The only thing that stopped him was, God, what's his name? Dale had seen it. And yeah, I get the feeling that they're turning Chris into Shane. He's losing it. And it's like, why? I mean, where are you going with this? I like the Chris character, but now they're going to turn him into a Shane. And it's like, probably kill him off by the end of the season. And it's like, you couldn't have come up with a better storyline for him than that. And speaking of season 2, The Walking Dead, and season 2 of Fear the Walking Dead, we have a storyline where when they get to Thomas Abigail's villa, we find out that his housekeeper is keeping walkers in the wine cellar. You know, people who worked on the farm had died, and they put him in this wine cellar, and of course they're feeding him a dog, which I thought was funny. It's like there's like this chute. I guess that's when in the vineyard, that's where they put the grapes to make the wine. You see this little boy, he's got this dog, and he just puts it in there. And I was like, I thought it was funny. And of course, Daniel, they find out about these walkers, and, you know, Celisa has the same attitude that Herschel had. It's like, no, these are friends and family. They're not really dead. And it's like, oh, God, we're doing this again. And like I said, this is 2 instances where it looks like they're doing what they did in season 2 of The Walking Dead, where they're going to be on this villa, which is like the farm, and they're going to be on there forever. And you've got a, like, we don't want to kill the walkers people storyline. You've got Chris turning into Shane. And the only thing I'm thinking is, for the love of God, don't turn Madison and Alicia into Lori and Andrea. You remember how useless Lori and Andrea were in season 2 of The Walking Dead? I do not want to see that happen to Clark and Alicia. Don't do it. Just okay. So the biggest storyline, of course, was Strand and Thomas. When they get to Thomas's villa, they find out that he's been bitten by one of the walkers from the church, and he's going to die. And Strand is trying to figure out what he's going to do. Is he going to put down his lover, or is he going to, do that and also go with him, commit suicide? There was a line that Thomas had. He's like, "Oh, my lover is so Shakespearean," which I thought was funny. And at one point, Celisa, the housekeeper, gives Strand these 2 poisonous communion wafers that she's going to, that she used on the people in the church. Strand gives it some thought, but ultimately he decides just to shoot Thomas. I like that storyline. It felt like they handled it pretty good, the drama of it, and you could put yourself in Strand's shoes. I mean, his whole reason for trying to survive was to be with Thomas. And now that's irrelevant because Thomas is going to die. So, yeah, you really felt for Strand. I thought that was probably the best thing about the episode is how they handled that. So, altogether, I thought the episode was good. I was worried about some of the directions they're going to take. Turning it into season 2 of The Walking Dead. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Don't get him stuck on that villa forever. When Chris, why you got to turn him into a shit? I liked the Chris character. Now you're turning him into a giant douche you're probably going to kill off. Also, there was one thing that I'm wondering about is the owls. We saw that on the coin that Louise had. We see it's like carved into the wood. Celisa says something down the lines of, they're not owls. It's something that what's coming next. I thought that was pretty interesting, like with Celisa, like I said, it is a retread of Herschel with the walkers on the farm, but I think there's more to it. I think she's got like some kind of weird cult thing going. Like the owl is the symbol of the Illuminati, so maybe she's a part of the Illuminati. I doubt that. It could also be like Woodsy the owl, don't give a hoot. Give a hoot, don't pollute. Maybe she's some kind of crazy environmentalist, and she's just killing off people who she thinks pollutes. So, well, I think that's interesting enough that'll keeps my interest, and we'll see what happens in the next episodes.